With the body type and athleticism of Taylor Cornelius, the arm of Mason Rudolph, and the brains of Brandon Whedon, it's easy to see why your quarterback coach is calling you the potential next Tom Brady. But even all of that isn't as exciting as this defense and this locker room. They have a quarterback carrying a different kind of swagger again in Stillwater.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are we feeling, our Big 12 brethren? Shout out to the regulators. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Mazda, who puts the same drive into every single detail. Wins define the moment, but putting in the work, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward moments. There's more to Mazda, just like there's also more to you. We get to roll into this quarterback swagger in Stillwater again conversation. And yes, it is easy to get excited about the 4,600 yards and the 34 touchdowns and all of the statistical things that he was able to achieve at North Texas, and the fact that we had to fend off, SEC schools who are offering millions of dollars, even more than Oklahoma State. That was always going to be a popular conversation. But for us to get excited, you got to dive into the locker room to some degree. And we've all heard over the years, right? Alan Bowman was a consummate professional. He was a good presence inside the huddle. And, Garrett Rangel was learning the system. And Haas Haney can do some things athletically that you just cannot believe. That's a little bit different than when you go back and see this most recent press conference with Malik Charles. When he was asked about Drew Mestemaker, he was grinning ear to ear. It was so genuine. You could tell that this defense is starting to buy in. So, of course, I reached out, talked to a couple of the fellows, and yes, Drew Mestemaker does, in fact, carry himself with a completely different level of confidence that is, permeated throughout that locker room. And the defensive guys, when they know they got a dude at quarterback, that typically changes the trajectory of what they can do as well, because that confidence level is a big deal. Like, if you know that your quarterback is going to be able to go put up points on the board, if you know that your quarterback is going to be able to bail you out of odd situations or turnovers or short fields, when you know you got a dude back there, it allows you to play a little bit more free. It allows you to stop thinking about potential mistakes and focusing on what your job is. And that is why we should all be excited. What Jeff Christensen says, yeah, we should absolutely 100% be excited about that, especially with the lineage of dudes that he has not only worked with previously, but currently is still working with. But this guy is saying that Drew Mestemaker is the next Tom Brady, the dude who's working with Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, Trey Lance, Ryan Tannehill, like even Ty Simpson, Haynes King, Fernando Mendoza, and Drew Mestemaker. The list goes on and on. Drew Mestemaker is kind of this Jeff Christensen product that is coming up because of the conversations and the trust that he's had with Eric Morris over the years. But just off of Jeff Christensen, right, he says originally to Eric Morris, hey, you need to come watch this kid throw, right? Kids don't come around like this. This is a generational talent. This is Jeff Christensen. His technique is so perfect. His arm never gets sore. He has an emphasis on efficiency, which allows Drew Mestemaker to throw up to 185 balls a day without ever needing ice, thanks to this Throw It Deep Academy that was put together by Mr. Christensen. Yeah, that gets us excited. The stats get us excited. Fending off the SEC schools and the heavyweights, that gets us excited. But even more so than all of it is the quotes. When you talk to the players, they are exuding confidence at a different level that maybe we haven't seen since the Spencer Sanders days. But as we know, offensively, even in the Spencer Sanders days, we were so limited playbook-wise that we didn't get the most out of the Spencer Sanders experience. These guys feel supremely confident that they're going to get the most out of this Drew Mestemaker experience, which means we are carrying a level of swagger on the sidelines that we haven't seen since Mason Rudolph. Taylor Cornelius had to bide his time behind Mason Rudolph for so long. We didn't necessarily get to see enough of him. But he's a 6'5", 230-pound beast. Mason Rudolph came to Oklahoma State 6'4", 212. That's Drew Mestemaker right now, 6'4", 211. And if you look at it statistically, yeah, he's got a long ways to go to catch up to Mason Rudolph. But having that confidence defensively in a dude leading the charge is why our excitement level needs to continue to increase. As Malik Charles said, When you got a guy that can throw a football like that and envision cheesing from ear to ear, because that's what was happening, he said you just walk around with a different type of aura. You can see it in the team runs. You can see it in how he portrays himself. He's a leader. How about Jaleel Johnson, who also talked about being part of turning the ship around, which we're going to dive a little bit more into in segment 2. But he said, even during morning runs, I've seen Drew Mestemaker take leadership and take control of the team. I'm excited to see what he's able to do for us. How about the cornerback, David Fisher? He's treated this like a professional with the speculation that's always been out there. He comes to practice locked in and works every single day. How about another dude that came over with him from North Texas, Miles Coleman? He was talking about his time at North Texas. He was honestly surprised he didn't get a chance to play sooner, even though Chandler Morris was the dude and Drew Mestemaker was learning from Sharon Morris after not playing for 4 years. Miles Coleman then was even saying he's just so smart. He's been able to adapt so fast. And even Aaron Morris said he knew that Drew Mestemaker was going to be a little bit different during that time where he was backing up Chandler Morris, because typically your number 4 or 5 on the depth chart and running scout team isn't going to be calling checks and audibles and doing adjustments. That's what Drew Mestemaker was doing, just because that's what made the most amount of sense to him. So his ability to process information is what made Brandon Whedon so spectacular. Mason Rudolph's ability to not only uncork the cannon, but layer it in between the safeties and the DBs. That's what kind of made him special. These are all components that you are seeing out of Drew Mestemaker. And if you do go back and talk to the Dylan Stoner kind of dudes that played with Mason Rudolph, they firmly believed that they had a chance at any game, at any time, no matter what was happening, because of Mason Rudolph. I mean, heck, even some of those Baker Mayfield, Mason Rudolph Bedlam matches where they're both throwing for 400, 500, 600 yards, like that was just crazy. Basically, in those games, it was who was going to have the ball last was likely to win those games. To know that you have that guy that can do that kind of thing back on the sidelines in Stillwater is precisely why the defense is carrying a little bit of a different swagger. They have a little bit of a different level of confidence now, not only in the staff, but in that dude. It's just incredible to see the difference. I implore you all to go back and dive into some of the conversations that the locker room was having about the Alan Bowmans or even the Garrett Rangels and Milwaukee Smiths or the Haas Haneys. The list goes on and on. Zane Flores. It was always nice. It was always kind. It was always polite. It was always, politically correct to some degree. But you can visibly feel, hear, and see the way that the emotions start changing in these defensive players when you start talking about Drew Mestemaker. They know they have a dude. They can play a little bit more freely. They can take a little bit more of a chance occasionally. They can play a little bit more of an attacking style. Because unlike some of the days, even when we had some of those guys under Casey Dunn, it felt like the defense had to win the game. And that 2021 D, the greatest, if not the second greatest in Oklahoma State history, could you have imagined how they could have even performed if they knew that Casey Dunn was going to continuously try to light up the scoreboard and was going to continuously try to put pressure on the other team? The best defense, arguably, in Oklahoma State history could have even looked significantly better. That's how big of a deal this is. And having the same guy that just coached up Fernando Mendoza, coaching up our guy, telling our coach and everybody that'll listen that our guy could easily be the next Tom Brady. And now the defense, they're bought in, hook, line, and sinker. They feel it, they see it, and they're exuding that level of intrigue and confidence into this upcoming season. That is why Drew Mestemaker is Himothy to a completely different level than we even suspected. It is time for you to get the most out of your everyday occurrences and your drive with Mazda. Mazda has the passion, the intentionality into everything that you're looking for. For those of us who know there's more to the score than what just simply pops up on the screen, Mazda helps remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It takes the extra work off the court to dial in every single detail, to give it that extra fire, that fine print, that grit, and that never quit attitude. That is encompassed by everything Mazda is doing to put that passion in every model. The highlights are real, but what it takes to get us there makes it all count even more. You already know that there's more to Mazda, so get squared away today because there's also more to you. We got to capitalize on the finances with some FanDuel conversation. It's NBA season, right? And if you've ever wanted to get to the NBA Finals, this is a big opportunity for you. FanDuel is giving us a chance to turn that dream into a reality with the NBA sweepstakes. All you do is use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole 9 yards, it's covered for you. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a big run, this is a perfect time to lock that in. You're going to love the futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win a championship or grab a conference title. It adds an extra layer of excitement to every single game as the intensity picks up. And now, not only can you pick your cash, but it can send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Make sure that you go play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Malik Charles obviously was the guy in that press conference that intrigued me to kind of do a little bit more of a deeper dive. And then Jaleel Johnson had a ton of things to say. But we don't have a lot of guys left that are bleeding orange. Yeah, Jaleel Johnson, Deshaun Brown, Cam Epps. We've definitely got some of these dudes. I think you could throw Matrell Lopez in there. He hasn't been there as long, but he had opportunities to leave. He did not. Cam Powell could be in that equation. Gunnar Wilson. So now we see how confident they are, how excited they are to see this Oklahoma State offense take the field, to see what this Cowboy offense could provide for them in preparation. That's another deal. Like, we saw our defense, especially at the latter half of this previous season, get better, get confidence, and at least keeping the game close. We didn't get a lot offensively, unfortunately, but defensively we got better as the season progressed. And one of those guys that you saw progressing was Malik Charles. Yeah, he's made a few different stops. And yes, we've talked about that NFL pedigree. His dad having almost a decade-long career, over 100, games or 100 tackles and, 14, 15 sacks, something to that effect. That's always been there, but he was always a basketball player. So the athleticism is there. We love the comps. If we're going to talk about Drew Mestemaker being the Taylor Cornelius body, the Mason Rudolph arm, the Brandon Whedon brain, Tyler Lacy and Malik Charles have a lot of similarities, at least physically. They're both 6'4", 275. They both have, a 4'5". I actually think Malik Charles 4'4", 940 is a little bit better than Tyler Lacy's. They both have that ability to get sideline to sideline, to constantly be in pursuit, to, adjust their angles enough to cause a disruption in the backfield. They can play the run. They can play the pass. We just saw Malik Charles get dinged up here and there. So we didn't get to see, consistent string of games from him just because there was injuries mixed in there. Now you got him talking about him trying to mirror his game after Myles Garrett. And he's saying they have a lot of similarities in how they can duck and turn the corner and get skinny. And I buy it. And also, we got to buy him being a loyal and true, bleeding orange, like a Jaleel Johnson, like a Deshaun Brown. And now that we know that they see this new level of Oklahoma State offense, maybe it is time to get excited about this defense. Because, Skylar Cassidy, he was very opportunistic this previous year at North Texas. But again, the idea is, well, he didn't have a ton of Malik Charles kind of guys at North Texas or Wendell Gregory kind of guys at North Texas. So now that he has all of his North Texas bad mamma jammas, plus some of these Malik Charles, Jaleel Johnson, Deshaun Brown kind of dudes, he should be able to excel. Well, again, we just covered another part of that is confidence in your offense, right? Even as a coordinator, if you know that your offense is going to be able to likely matriculate the ball down the field successfully and score you some points and give you some breathing room, you can be more aggressive. You can have more fun. You can take more chances. You can get a little bit more creative. And I can't tell you how exciting this is starting to become. How about some quotes from Mr. Jaleel Johnson and Malik Charles from this previous press conference. He said, I'm going to be real. I knew I was staying regardless and talking about entering the transfer portal. Malik Charles went on to say, when I initially transferred from West Georgia, me and my family talked about it. Wherever I chose, I was going to try to be there for the next 2 years. Coaching changes happen. It's going to happen in the league too. So you've just got to be able to adapt to the adversity. I knew it was going to be set in stone, and I was going to stay regardless. I wanted to be a place where I could solidify myself. I've been around for 3 different colleges at this point. So, like, when I was transferring, I'd been to like 3 different colleges at that point, and I wanted to be somewhere where I could make a name for myself and stay for my last 2 years. With that being said, he said he was extremely nervous and waiting on the call to get an opportunity to come back. And that speaks volumes because, again, there was a lot of film, a lot of practice film. There was some game film that this staff had to come in, and Raj Murdy and Eric Morris and Skylar Cassidy and all these guys had to sort through and call a spade a spade. There was like 50 dudes that they just flat out said, I'm sorry, it's not good enough. Right? Call a spade. We're going to agree with some. We're going to disagree with some. But at the end of the day, this staff and Raj Murdy, who is a film junkie, they looked at all of the practice film and they dictated whether you were going to be an integral piece moving forward or, if they kind of wanted you, but the money had to be right, as opposed to the guys that just were not quite at the levels that they feel like they needed them to be. To be part of that 35, 40-ish crew that was asked to stay, that's a big deal. And, but yeah, of course, Jaleel Johnson being part of that is huge. And Malik Charles. And lastly, going back to Jaleel Johnson, what he had to say, much like Malik Charles, is I wanted to be loyal and true to the end. He said, I love it here. And like I said, man, just the past 2 years, I used to watch Oklahoma State games growing up, and this was never how it was here. It's just unfortunate that it has been like this, but I want to be part of the reason why we turn this ship around. There's not a lot of returning dudes, and it's somewhat understandable why. But thankfully, this staff was able to look at things in totality and realize that there was different versions of this previous season predicated upon the coaching. We started the year with Mike Gunny, Todd Grantham, then we went a game with Todd Grantham, then got rid of Todd Grantham. Then we changed to Doug Meacham, we changed to Clint Bowen. We had to maneuver a lot of things. But throughout the course of that, Malik Charles talked about it. Jaleel Johnson talked about it. It was evident that not everybody was checking out. And there's a reason that we got better with second and third stringers because they were committed. They were dedicated to their craft. And obviously guys like Malik Charles, Jaleel Johnson, Deshaun Brown, they were dedicated to trying to do enough to make sure that they were good enough to stick around to see this thing get flipped backward to where it should be. We should be a constant 8 to 10 win ball club. We should be competing for Big 12 titles here and there. We should be these things. And it's crazy that we've got a few players on this roster that have been part of playing for a Big 12 title that have also been part of 2 of the worst seasons in our lifetimes. So, yeah, shout out to the loyal and true dudes, and shout out to the coaching staff for evaluating the film and saying, you know what, Oklahoma State's had a terrible 2-year run, but some of these dudes clearly can produce. Some of these guys we're watching in practice film were beating up on the starters. We want those guys. And then you have guys like Malik Charles just kind of circling the wagons to make it all feel right. Speaking of feeling right, guys, I'll tell you, getting the right hires, it can be a process. It can be a headache. So get with Indeed so it doesn't have to be any of those things. The workplace chaos is already enough, and you've got deadlines that are stacking up on you, and you've got messages that you need to get to. And somehow that one position that potentially would help you get all that done more smoothly is still available. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for with the right skills, the right experience, the right location, everything. So you're not just hoping for the right candidate to stumble upon your post. Here's a fun stat that says everything you need to know. In the last little minute or so, I've been talking to you. Companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you are hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with Indeed-sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing the candidates who check all of the boxes. It removes some of the stress. It removes some of the time to free you up to get other things done. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help make sure your job gets the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, this is a perfect time for you to check out Indeed sponsored jobs. It's a job for Indeed. Everybody, make sure when you get off here, go check into the Everydayers Club. It was launched when I was out for a bit there, but I'm diving into it. You need to get squared away today. You go to Locked On Podcasts with an S.com. Head down to Oklahoma State, be part of the Everydayer Club. You'll get exclusive content, a little bit more of a direct availability to me, and we can chop it up, have some fun. Speaking of chopping up, having some fun, baseball has the opportunity to do that today as we take on Central Arkansas. And yes, it does matter. It is an important game. It's kind of a one-off scenario, but it's a game back home at O'Brate. We kind of need to get those O'Brate juices flowing. We need to prove that what we just did the last couple games against Grand Canyon is not a fluke. We have a team that's good enough to go yard, long ball all day, every day, but we also are good enough, athletic, and fast enough to put a ton of pressure on you, play a ton of small ball, and make you hit your spots and make you not make mistakes and commit errors. If we do that, then I think, again, we should kind of get a little bit more excited about the potential of Cowboy baseball. I think this staff, from a pitching perspective, is going to sort itself out. But the last time we played Central Arkansas, we lost. Why? Because small ball clubs typically eat our lunch. This will be a good barometer test. Not only did we lose to Central Arkansas the last time we played them, I think it was 2020, 2019-ish. But I think we're tied all-time series with Central Arkansas. It's like 3-3 or 4-4, something to that effect. And we have a losing record at home to Central Arkansas. I think we're like 2-3 at home. So this will be an opportunity for us to take the series lead, prove that it wasn't an aberration, what we saw the last couple games against Grand Canyon, and to kind of, get that win-loss record with them on the right side to even out the win-loss record with them inside O'Brate Stadium and just validate that Oklahoma State baseball is not it's not a one-trick pony. You have to be able to prove that you have the capability to do a multitude of things, and we haven't been able to do that over the last few years. It looks a little bit different now, right? Thankfully. We just need to carry that momentum. We need to keep something going that we just witnessed. And then Cowboy basketball, Cowgirl basketball. Yes, we've got some correcting to do, some fixing to do. But Cowboy basketball, if you haven't seen it, I implore you to go check out the live show that I did with Mountaineer Paul, because we do play West Virginia. And yes, I know it's an outside shot, but hear me out, ladies and gentlemen. We still definitely have an opportunity to make an NCAA tournament. We have 4 tournament teams back to back, or at least bubble teams, last 4 in, last 4 out kind of scenarios, with West Virginia, who is on the bubble. Cincinnati not only is on the bubble, but they've kind of gotten hot and just took down KU. Then you've got UCF. We do have a win over UCF, which is helping bolster our chances. But you get another win over UCF, who's now being tabbed as a bona fide certified tournament team. And then you close the season out with Houston. It would take a win in all 4 games. I get that. And it's unlikely given the last 3 games. However, it's a possibility. And surely this roster understands that. They understand that if you're going to make any waves, you're going to make any moves this season, it has to be now. If you're going to prove any of the doubters wrong, that you can play as a team, you can play defense, you can get back, you can box people out and get rebounds in meaningful moments. If you want to prove that you can do all of that, now is the time. The crazy part is last season was the exact opposite, right? The beginning was a struggle. The middle was a little here and there, up and down. We closed strong. We look like a pretty good basketball team the last 8-9 games of last year. This year, for some reason, it's the opposite. We start the season like crazy, right? You go knock off Auburn, and then you beat Texas A&M by 20-something. At Northwestern is a quality team. Like you started the season off exciting. We were hot. And then we have fallen apart recently. And that's complete opposite of Steve Lutz's first year. So it'll be interesting to see if Steve Lutz is able to go in that locker room and say, listen, guys, maybe I've messed up here. Maybe you guys have messed up here. Maybe we all collectively have messed up X, Y, or Z. But we have an opportunity. Thankfully, we end the season with 4 teams who are either in the tournament or last 4 in or right on the bubble. It's not like we're ending the season against the last 2 place teams in the conference. That would be different, right? If we're ending the season with some games that don't bolster us in any capacity, then it's been lost. But thankfully, fortunately, Cincinnati turned it on. UCF has turned it on. Houston is still Houston, and West Virginia has turned it on. The teams that we're facing do give us an opportunity. If you win all 4 of these games and you win 1 Big 12 tournament game, you're probably in the tournament. That number typically has been 20. We could get to 20 wins, and then we could get an extra one in the Big 12 tournament. If all of that were to happen, yeah, we don't have to worry about the NIT tournament. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Lockdown Oklahoma State, because you could be anywhere. So I'm so happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it, dislike if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast and people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Leave some stars. Hit some reviews. Alrighty, y'all. Later, taters.